Thank you, James, for having coming on our show. It's really interesting to have you today. We've got Josh and Isaac from Team Praetorium. Project Praetorium is where we teach business owners and startup founders the next level of how to perform at the most optimum peak level to deliver great business performances. So today we've got with us our guest, James Snoddy. He's actually US diplomat, but also a foreign service officer, but also US Army veteran as well. So he's got a strong foundation, and about everything that he does, he's also a startup founder. So this is like a man who wears many hats, and he's actually built businesses very smartly, let's say, a normal person would do that. So that's what makes him special. So I don't want to spoil the fun. I'd like James talk to us about himself, and also we can get a deep insight from him. So, James, would be great if you could introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about what you do and all the cool things that you're involved with.
Sure, thank you. I really appreciate Josh, Isaac, having me on the podcast today. I will have to give a disclaimer. I'm here in my personal capacity on my personal time, speaking solely for myself. And so I've been with the State Department for about 12 years now. Prior to that, I worked for the civil service for a small defense agency. Before that, I was in the Army for about 10 years. Started off as an enlisted guy, military police, and then I became an infantry officer after college. I went to University of Maryland, College Park, and then Johns Hopkins for grad school after that. Stationed all over the world, Cuba, Iraq, Mumbai, where I met Isaac. We were there for 2 years. We had our son when we were stationed in India. Then we went to Riga in Latvia for a couple of years. I had to learn Russian prior to going there. And came back to Washington for a couple of tours. And then most recently, I was stationed in Trinidad and Tobago, where I was their international narcotics and law enforcement unit chief down there. And now I'm working for the Cyberspace and Digital Policy Bureau. I'm our head of delegation for the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Telecommunications Working Group. It's like a title that's, this long, and encompasses, some fairly wide swath of telecoms and AI and all sorts of stuff. Along the way, I like to chill out, so I invented this thing called the Jammock, which is basically a hammock that goes on top of your Jeep Wrangler. It's a very simple invention, but I noticed that it did not exist, so I created it and then slowly built it up. I used a credit card to do the first production run of like $3,500. And we turned it into a seven-figure business. The seven figures are on the lower side of the seven figures. We're not like 9 million, but we've done about $1.3 million in sales, and it's a side gig. We have not done so well recently. The business is probably on the downslope. The Chinese are able to make my product at about 20% of the cost of what I sell it for. And I really can't compete. So we're seeing some competition there. I built another smaller business where we make T-shirts and office supplies. And these are all State Department themed. I don't know if you gentlemen have ever noticed, but a lot of veterans in the military from the United States, they get out and they start a T-shirt business, and it's military stuff. State Department doesn't have that, and I thought, well, maybe I can fill a void here. And it's a lot of inside jokes, and that one doesn't really make a lot of money, but it's more of a labor of love and a creative outlet than anything else. So I have a wife and a son who I love very much. I'm a full-time dad. I'm a full-time diplomat. I'm sure that you guys are you guys have other stuff besides work. So how do you do all of these things and still have time to be present for the people that you love and to do the things that you want to do besides work? I published a book in June that talks about how to do all of that. And it's very simple. I call it subtraction systems and how to be strategically lazy. And what a lot of that amounts to is if something doesn't provide ROI, there's no real return on investment, stop doing it. Or develop a system so that you never have to do busy work again. And I'll just a real quick couple of examples. If you make your bed in the morning, like Admiral McRaven gave a famous speech about how you should make your bed every day so you've accomplished one thing. No, I think he's wrong, and I do not make your bed. That is 2 minutes that you can put towards something else. And if you get your morning routine stacked correctly, and you stop doing some of these performance art things, that 2 minutes turns into 10 minutes maybe when you've got all these other things accounted for. And that 10 minutes is a very fungible, functional block of time that you can use for other stuff. The other, and this is maybe an example that's kind of unique to places that are humid, but if you have a dehumidifier and you don't have a hose running from the bottom of that to a drain or to a bathtub or something else, and you're emptying that thing twice a day, well, that's 2 minutes every single day for the rest of your life that you got to do. Or you can fix it for $20 and have it set to run automatically. And so those are two things that are kind of like the crux of what I'm talking about: is automate systems or delete the dumb shit. Like that's kind of the slogan there. One other thing, and this one's probably had the biggest ROI. When I was stationed in Riga, I ran to work and I ran home, and it was about 5 kilometers each way. The commute was 20 minutes by car. My run was only 25 minutes. So I was only a net negative of 5 minutes each way, but I was going to have to run anyways when I got home. And I had my son, Alessandro, was like 4 years old at the time, and I wanted to be present for him. So I stacked it, got my commute taken care of, and I worked out. And while I was working out, I had podcasts in, so I was learning at the same time. When I was learning Russian, also when I was running, working out, because I run about 1,000 miles a year, I would listen to Russian language podcasts, and I would practice my Russian. So it's stacking. It doesn't take much thinking when you're running, so you can put your mental power into something else. So that's kind of that. Sorry, I talked a lot.
Awesome, James. Brilliant. I mean, there's so much to learn throughout the session of the podcast. Absolutely. I remember from your business journey as well, you telling me about your company and how you had automated things, where I knew there was somebody who was doing marketing for his business he had never met. And I actually met her in one of the bars. And I was asked the question, do you happen to know James? And they was like, no, I know James very well as a friend. Oh, I've never met James, but I work for him and I get paid every month. But things are automated in such a way that business was doing really well in those days. But great. So James, we'll get to the next question. One is the one, because you've worked in so many places around the world, you've been fortunate to do that because of your service. I'd like to really dive into, for our professionals, so what does it take to be flexible and adaptable in different conditions and in different cities? And sometimes you have to perform at the same level, irrespective of where you're put in. So give us a breakthrough about some of the places you worked, how the infrastructure was, but how did you have to deliver what you had to do and how intense it got?
So as a foreign service officer or as an Army officer, we move jobs every 2 to 3 years, and you are, for lack of a better word, parachuted into a situation where you have very little background, and you've got to immediately get up to speed. In July of this year, I changed jobs. I came back home from Trinidad and Tobago to the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Telecoms Working Group, and I had the big ministerial in 3 weeks. So I started my job in early July, and I had to go to Seoul and Incheon in Korea at like the 25th of July to go lead the delegation to the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation. And while I was there, I'm negotiating with 20 other economies on joint statements, on certain other documents, and things of that nature. And these are all telecoms based. I was an English major. My master's is in writing. Like I am not an engineer. I am not a computer science guy. So for a lot of that stuff, you've got to trust and rely on your teams. So we have a very large interagency team from all sorts of different U.S. government agencies, and those are the subject matter experts. And for a lot of things, I defer to them. Right? You're the expert. I I have always trusted in my people. Whenever I'm in charge of stuff, I find that to be it's empowering on many ways, but also nobody wants to micromanage. It's too much work to micromanage people. Like, and then you don't have time to do the things that you need to do. So I would say, do a lot of reading before you get there so that you know what you're talking about. Trust your folks. They're the ones that have been there before. They know what they're doing. But also, if something doesn't look right, then you need to fix that as well. And there are some times where your gut, can kind of kick in, and you can fix stuff. Another thing that I do is whenever I take over anything, I cancel all the meetings, because I have noticed that in so many corporate cultures, this meeting creep where people just they want to have a stand up and we want to talk about this. We want to have a staff meeting over here. No, I cancel everything, and the meetings that need to be there organically come up, and we will do that. Like when I was in Trinidad, my predecessor had a couple of weeklies and all this stuff, and no, I got rid of all that stuff. I sat next to in the same building as my staff, and when we needed to meet, we did. But I'm not going to waste their time. They don't need to meet me. Like we will figure this out one-on-one, or we'll do it ad hoc. So protect your calendar. I guess that's best advice.
So I would say ignore the noise, watch for the signals, and then just read up a lot before you get to different destinations, and then get your feet going that way, and then meetings will come to you. Okay, great one taken.
Yeah, really
Next
interesting.
question, Josh.
Yeah. So next question is, I'm more coming from a military background as well, just interested to what your life lessons were from the infantry side and what you basically took forward with you going into your future career as well. What were the core lessons that you learned?
So from a translating it to corporate side, I remember when I was a cadet, I did ROTC, and we would get our operations order from higher headquarters or whatever for our mission. I remember I'd watch all the other cadets, and they'd be listening intently. They'd be writing every single word down, because they wouldn't give us anything on paper, and they're writing in their notebooks. And all I was writing was the stuff that was necessary for me and my unit, right? So all I need is the platoon stuff and a little bit of the higher headquarters stuff, but everything else is just noise, and that's part of the test, right? The cadre, the senior officers, are trying to see who understands that you need to be able to distill and pull out the important information and figure out what is noise and what isn't. And I think that's key here, because again, with meeting creep, with all sorts of conflicting information that you get from bosses or from subordinates, you have to filter out what's real and what isn't. And some of that stuff you don't even need to care about. So please don't even tell me about it. I follow assiduously the 1/3, 2/3 rule of planning. I'm sure that, I don't know if the British Army or the Royal Marines have something similar, but basically for a mission, you take 1/3 of your available time to plan, and then you execute the other 2/3. And that's a pretty good going forward to actually get your stuff done. I see people who are physically unable to prioritize stuff. And when you're planning a major movement or a mission, like you have to, or you're not going to get your stuff done. We also have the troop leading procedures. There are 8 of them. Number 4 is my favorite. It's called Start Necessary Movement. I have an entire chapter on it in my book, and that is get the things going right now that you can that you can turn on while you're doing other stuff. So it's issue orders to subordinates. Hey, we're going in like an hour and a half. Did you do your pre-combat inspections? Are your guys, you need to get moving. So I'm going to turn you guys on and set you in motion. And then I'm going to go and do that with my other subordinate squads. So starting necessary movement is a huge time saver, especially if you can trust your people, which, you should, or else they shouldn't be your people. So I think those are fairly major. And these are all things that you don't have to be a genius to do any of this stuff. You just have to be able to prioritize and be disciplined in the application of them.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the lessons are similar to what I've learned as well, is taking in the key information, and then time management as well, is how you can do things efficiently and going forward in business. Yeah, I massively agree with you there.
Great, James. Now we'll dive a bit more deeper into your life. So let's say, how does a diplomatic life kick in from military life? So you work for a contractor and then got into being into, let's say, the posh diplomatic life. And what's the transitions like? And what are the skills that you perhaps have to learn again or learn new and then get going?
No, it was learn new. And coming into the foreign service, you can't be an infantryman. You have to be a little more diplomatic. You have to change some of your speech, and like that is very similar to corporate speak these days as well. In the infantry, like our speech amongst each other was pretty raw. And everybody just understood that, and nobody took offense to it. And then in regular business or in diplomacy, it is another level of refined and diplomatic, for lack of a better word. So there was that. I tend to be very direct, especially with subordinates and with people. It is nothing personal, but I do not want there to be any. I don't want there to be any question of what I mean. So I'm not going to hedge around stuff. I'm going to be like, hey, look, this is what needs to happen, and you are responsible for X, Y, and Z. Is there anything about that you misunderstood? No, great, okay. But on the other side of that, right, you have to take care of your folks. That's something that in the military, in the corporate side, in the foreign service, everywhere, if you don't do that, you are negligent, and that you have got to take care of your people. That means everything, making sure that they're paid. We had an issue at one of my postings where two of my subordinates had they have use or lose leave. If they don't use it by the end of the year, they lose it, and they were not allowed to take leave because of certain other things that happened before my arrival. So I was like, okay, you're going to use all of that. So you're going home today. We will figure it out, because they had like 3 weeks and we had 1 quarter to burn it all off. But so they earned it. They should not lose it. And we have to make sure that they know that we care, and that we're going to enforce that care. So I think that showing that, and showing it not just by like saying you're doing a great job, but by actually enforcing that, putting people in for awards, for recognition, awards with money. We have those too. I'm liberal with that for my folks. If I think they've done a good job, I'm putting you in for an award, and I'm going to try to get you paid. So these are concrete gestures of my appreciation for you. So in the military, they don't have like bonuses like that. But they do have decorations. You can get, like, the Army gives away like ribbons like candy in certain ways, and you can put people in for good stuff, or you can tell them, hey, take the rest of the day off. Have a pass this weekend. Take Friday off as well, or something like that. Little gestures, and because in the military, like, you control so much of mostly younger people's lives, especially in the combat arms. Just that there is so much that you can control. So don't be a jerk, like, take care of your folks, and don't lord whatever power you have over people. It's unbecoming.
Okay, great one. Now we'll want to dive a bit more into the business part of it. So this is quite fascinating. So when we had reviewed statistics on what businesses or what startups survived the test of time, and we were surprised, it was most of the time businesses that were started by a founder who had another job. And then technically everyone tells you, hey, quit your job, go 100% into it. But the reality of the fact is, a job is what keeps the cash engine running. And businesses need cash to keep the engine running. Until you cannot keep pushing a business going ahead, you can't hire. Until you have a job giving you cash flow, you can't push your business ahead. So interestingly, when I read about when I knew that you were a full-time foreign service officer and you had created a startup, I was even surprised, wow, how did you do it? And then also realized that it became quite successful, and eventually it became, I guess, also bigger than the wages you made from foreign services you were making from your business. So tell us a bit about the early launch, the start of the idea, and where it came from, the experience, and how did you put that time from all your busy hours to learning, hey, there's a gap in the market. I need to step into it.
So the Jammock, it's a simple idea. It's a hammock that fits over the top of the roll bars of a Jeep Wrangler. It also fits the Ford Bronco, which I own one now, and it's pretty cool. The genesis of the idea came when I was stationed as a young infantry officer at Fort Benning. I liked to get off post because I like to run with headphones in. I run 1,000 miles a year, but on military bases you can't run with headphones on. So I had to drive to some track, 10 miles north, and I'd get done with my workout, and I didn't want to go back to base. I wasn't married at the time. I would prefer to stay out. So I wanted to sit down somewhere, and I figured, hey, why not put a hammock on top of the Wrangler? Because I like to take the top down and the doors off and roll around like that. So I put a small hammock up there, and then I figured, well, hey, maybe I should customize it so that it fits better. And then also so it operates as a little storage shelf when the top is on the Jeep. And then that turned into the Jammock, which we eventually got patented like 20 or 16 years later is when I finally got the patent done, and all of that. But it started incrementally. In 2012 is when we opened. I did a very abbreviated production run of about 100 units, and I went to Daytona Beach in Florida for the Jeep Beach Week they had down there, and I was selling Jammocks on the infield of the Daytona Speedway. I had my Jeep there, and I put a ladder next to it so people could climb up and sit in it, and that was how we got our first 20 sales or so. Unfortunately, towards the end of the day, a guy came to me and said, hey, something's going on with my Jammock, and the one of the sewing portions has started to come unraveled, and I noticed that it was not just his. It was every single one of them. So we did a mass recall for our first production run, and I paid everybody an extra $10, and I replaced every unit, but I also had to mail them, so it was shipping costs and everything else, and it took a while. We were almost dead in the water immediately because of that that manufacturer's defect. When I did the second production run, that almost didn't happen either, because the Jammocks that I had were all tan, and everybody wanted them in black. But I was convinced that tan was the right way to go, and I didn't have enough money to do 2 production runs. So I was like, you know what, screw it. We're just done. I'm not gonna. This is too much bother. My wife Nadia, she's like, why don't you just do a pre-sale? And I was like, what are you talking about? She goes, put it out there, have people pay for it up front, use that money to fund the production run, and then you sell them in black. And I was like, that's genius. It didn't even cross my mind. And so she saved the company. So we did that. We did another production run of 100, and then we sold those out, and then we kept on going. Finding a sewing contractor in the United States in the 2010s was very difficult, because I wanted it to be made in the United States. The Jeep demographic really values that, and also it's good workmanship. So we started having it made in Puerto Rico, and then eventually it was made in Rochester, New York, which is where I am right now, so upstate. The way that we spun this out was I contract everything out. I'm a busy person, so I contracted out the manufacturer. I contracted out the advertising, the social media, all that stuff. Isaac, you were referencing you met the social media director in Mumbai. I had never met her in person, but I hired her, and I was paying her, a significant amount of money, and she did an amazing job. I credit her with the rise in sales. We were up to, I think, doing about $250,000 a year when she was running the show. She did just a fantastic job. So that's one of the things, right? Like I will pay people to do the things that I don't want to do or cannot do.
So all this delegation, finding people, how did that come about? I'm sure you spend time and resource also into sourcing these contractors to work for you. And how about finding the first producers, people who can produce for you, and the basic finance of it and the business plan?
The business plan was by the seat of my pants. It was because especially trying to find a sewing contractor, that was key. and it was hard. I found a guy in Seattle to do the first production run, and then after the defect happened, we changed up, and we went to a Fortune 500 company down in Virginia Beach, and they have factories in Puerto Rico, and then we moved to a local sewing contractor in Rochester. Typically, I like to pay my friends to do stuff. So if I have somebody that I like, or if my friend has a recommendation for me that for one of their friends, I like to keep the money in the family if I can. So a lot of the stuff has been friend sourced or has been friends of friends. And
Wow,
I don't
okay.
offer discounts. We pay our own way here. We carry our own bags. But I do think that, like, if you can, you can build your friend network while also building your business, that's a value add. It is. And, like, I'm a pretty sociable person and I like to hang out and all that. So growing it that way, in my opinion, made life easier for me.
Awesome, James. That's super inspiring. So one of the takeaway would be obviously to build a good network and have good friends and people who can trust and rely to do with the job, instead of just hanging out with people just for the sake of hanging out, just to waste time. But if you build a good network who are reliable, who can actually support you and help you build a business, that's awesome.
I agree. And one other thing, I have a very large group of friends, yourself included. If I am the smartest person in the room, I have done something wrong, right? Like, I want my friends to be smarter than me because I want to be continually challenged, and I want to improve myself also. So sorry for interrupting.
Oh, perfect. Well said, James. That's always a note that we take. I mean, you should always find skill sets that other people can do better than you, and obviously learn from them. And it's always a good one. Great one. Great. Now, I wanted to ask about the challenges. Like, say, for example, when you've operated that business for a while now, so when you get hit with challenges, then do you pre-plan the risks that's coming up, or do you have like a black swan event that pops up? Say, for example, everybody had COVID, which was a black swan event, which nobody expected. And the worst thing about that situation was you didn't know how long the lockdowns would go on for. So it was one of these unforeseen, to the never-ending world is coming down type of event. So in business as well, how do you forecast certain challenges and how do you manage those risks? So if you can talk from your perspective of what happened to you when you were operating that business.
We never get over our skis with cash. That's the easy answer. So I have very little overhead. Jamit costs me about $50 a month to run. Because we have the website, and I up until very recently I had all of my units housed in a warehouse, and we paid $12 a month for them to be sitting in the warehouse. And then when we bought one, everything was automated. I didn't see anything or touch anything. They got the order and they would fill it. So for cash, I never quit my day job. That was important. We talked about that earlier, how a lot of people do startups and they do it while they're working because they have to keep their cash flow, running. We recently had a government shutdown. They didn't pay USG employees for quite some time, but like we were well insulated because I plan ahead for such things. We're very lucky and privileged in that way. And so I would say that being prepared for a black swan event, number one is keep that overhead as low as possible. There are a lot of things that are nice to have, but not necessary to have. And, if I have to pick between nice to have and not having it, I probably don't have it. But there's a downside too, right? I have done very little with social media. So my marketing budget is effectively zero these days, and sales are showing that. A lot of this has to do with I'm more on the downswing of this business as it is, and I simply have not put forth my best effort. Period. The end. But you can spend $100,000 a year on your marketing budget, or you can spend $0 a year. You will see differing results from differing numbers. The nice to have of that is, you're selling stuff. I think that a couple years ago I spent $18,000 US on marketing, but but I think I only sold about $20,000 worth of product during that time, or something like that. It wasn't worth it to me. So at this point, I sell a unit here or there. Okay, that's a couple $100 a month, and because I didn't quit my day job, and because Jamic doesn't have any debt, and we don't carry a balance or anything like that. Like, it doesn't matter. So it's something that I can walk away from, or sell, or not do, and I don't owe anybody money, and they're not going to come take my house.
Yeah. So conclude, it would be about keep your operating costs as low as possible so that you have huge margins that would be buffers for you to store cash, and then to have enough runway, and also potentially save you from black swan events. Yes, the government shutdown was an interesting one, because I've heard loads of people. It was the longest government shutdown ever, and people had to pay mortgages, rents, household equipment, things like that. It was tough. So we could also put that as one of the events, and hopefully that never occurs again. Josh, do you have any questions?
No, everything's been really informative so far. I'm taking quite a lot of lessons from what you're saying, so it's really good. I'd say you seem to have like a very entrepreneurial mindset. So my question to you is, have you got any new ventures coming up?
So I tried so hard to mimic the previous success of a new product of the Jamic. I built one for truck beds, because in the United States, trucks are the most popular vehicle on the market. And I built basically what amounts to a large cargo net that's about 1.5 meters diagonal, so you can lay down on it. And it was heavy duty, like made out of like very thick nylon, but it was $300. It was simply too expensive, and it did not hit the way that the Jamic hit. I tried to get something else. It's a belt called the Snap Sling, and basically it's a piece of webbing that you wear as a belt, but it expands. It's one piece that through a series of tri-glides shrinks down to about 32 inches, so it fits as a belt, and then it will expand out to about 7 feet, so about 2 meters, 2.5 meters.
Oh wow!
So that you have a sling if you need it. And the buckles, there were 3 different buckles on it. I figured out a way to make carabiners into a belt buckle. They would nest up. So you have now a sling with 2 carabiners. Have you ever been someplace and been like, man, I wish I didn't have an extra carabiner? No, because everybody could use a carabiner for something. Yeah. We also had some other different types of buckles. They were manufactured in Switzerland, like very cool Cobra 10,000-pound buckles. The genesis of this, my son, he likes to ride his bike, and when he was very small, he would get tired of riding his bike, and we would be like a mile on the trail. Daddy, I'm tired. I'm not going to ride my bike anymore. Well, this bike is tiny, and I can't ride it, and I can't push it because I got to hunch over. So the only other way is I have to torque it over my shoulder, or you take off your snap sling and you attach it to the bike and you carry it like a bag, right? That was the whole genesis of that. And I pitched this to Walmart. I pitched this to REI. I made it myself, because I do some sewing myself here. Nobody wanted it. And I'm still to this day, like, I would love to get that one going, because I think it's a great idea personally. It's useful. You can use it as a tourniquet if you need to in an emergency. Yeah. Like, it has so many applications. Yeah. You can use it as an emergency Swiss seat. If you got to rappel or abseil out of someplace, man, you're good to go. So there was that. I actually am probably going to be going to business school next year. I did applications, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens there, because I am getting retirement for my career. And I'm looking at what's next, so I don't know, but if you guys have any ideas, I'm all in.
Come join us.
Like I said, I loved your website, and I think you have a really good mix of folks over there.
Yeah, absolutely. So interesting, James. Looks like you're doing one venture after the other, and you keep going at it. That's absolutely brilliant. And this is potentially what keeps you going, I guess. Some founders are always about what's next, and how can we get going. Brilliant. Let's say now, like today, the world has become very different, because back then, now you've got a different type of founders, where you've got As soon as you quickly have an idea, you go fundraising and then you scale up and then you have a bunch of investors who push you. And then some of these investors just want to get to the next round and get their money out and get out. Some of the investors are not with you long term. They're just in it for the next round. So in this challenging environment that founders face, what are, and also with political situations also changing. So back in the day, we in Europe particularly, we had a situation where the Russians were friends that you wanted to have or you didn't want to have. Today, it's a situation where you cannot actually have anything to do with. You can't transact with anybody from that country. You can't do anything. And same situation also, we had Brexit, so it's a different situation with the tax regimes, etc. So there is challenges coming up, and now with the rise of AI as well, things potentially say we don't need employees, but eventually you have to pay for AI services, which also costs um, um, a fortune. So if you can just highlight, what are you seeing in your perspective in terms of the new upcoming challenges of setting up a new business?
AI, it has changed everything and will continue to change everything. We will not recognize this world in 5 years. We might not recognize this world in 3 years. It is coming. It is already here to a large extent. And people look at large language models and are like, it's a chatbot, it's this. No, for me, for a business person, for a diplomat, I use it to offload my mental load for stuff that I don't need to think about or to do. I use it as a tool for self-reflection because it remembers stuff. I use agentic AI to do things that I don't want to do, to remind me of things, to look up, what does this application do? When is this happening? And I'll set those up to remind me. I think that moving forward, the implications are nothing less than earth-shattering. AI, whether we get to AGI in the next year or the next 3 years, the artificial general intelligence is going to be the ball game, so to speak. If we ever get to ASI, artificial superintelligence, that will completely render many things obsolete, possibly humans, if we get to that level. So we really can't talk about investing or anything without that caveat. From a more traditional perspective, yeah, the first round of angel investors, round A, round one, whatever, like all of that stuff. It's because people are not married to the product of the company, right? The founders may be, but the investors don't care. They see a good deal and they want to get money in and then more money out. That's the cycle, and I don't blame them for that. I'm not particularly attached to any of my businesses, and if somebody wanted to invest in them and then pull money out afterwards, as long as everybody's getting paid, I have no problem with that. I think that for people though that are like married to their work, like maybe some of the AI companies, right? Like if you look at OpenAI, they were, I think, nonprofit for quite some time, but they got some heavy investments in, like they're not leaving for any amount of money because they really believe in that product that they're putting out, and they think they're doing good for the world, for the country, things like that. So I think that there is possibly a disconnect between the investors and founders, but at the end of the day, entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs for like two reasons, right? One, they want to make some money, and two, they have a product that they want to get out, maybe their reasoning for that is they want to make the world a better place for their kids or for their friends or something like that.
So let's say AI is an important challenge for entrepreneurs, and whatever you're doing in your next business plan, you have to include AI, and you also have to factor in it's coming. So what are you going to scale up on? And I think human skill sets like sales, like being out there where a person is needed, that will be there. But I think certain things AI will take over. Like how I understood about AI was, think about it as a small baby being born. In 10, 15 years, it learns everything from the world. Imagine if you have a machine that can record thousands of babies being born, and then all the input is fed in, and then when the babies get mature, it becomes smart. But imagine a machine with all the babies around the world that's provided data, And eventually, when it's 20 years old, it will be potentially the smartest individual on the planet if you can harness data from everyone. So that's where we're going to go into the future, where you've got machines that will be way smarter and who's got access to data from everywhere, and who potentially will be a superhuman intelligent machine that we've got coming up. And we don't know where the world will go, but the only way is to adapt and to work with it.
Absolutely. I think the current trend line is AIs are increasing about 2.5 IQ points per month or something like that. And we're like the top notch folks are at like 130 right now. And once we get to that 160 level, because that's like the 1 in a million percentile, and that's just going to be what once we get to where an AI can improve its own code, make itself more efficient, it's got this recursive improvement going. That is when stuff will really start to take off. We're nearing that asymptotic, line where it starts to point straight up.
Yeah, there's a fascinating story about foundation of Google and AI, and this is super interesting since the age of 2001, 2002, they've been working on this. And then credit goes to all the researchers who actually managed to pull that together, and how to put language models into place. And I've been reading up a lot on it, but also learning, okay, this is coming, and this is really, it could be dangerous, but also there's nothing you can do to avoid it. And if not you, there's somebody else building a similar model next door. So you've got, even as a nation, if we say, hey, we want to be conservative, we're not going to take up AI much, but you've got the Chinese and everyone else who's spending so much money on it, and they potentially have more data and more organized data than anybody anywhere else. So that's where we would see who builds the best model. Well, now let's get into a bit about capital raising strategies. So this is something that when we speak to founders, new founders, I deal with especially a lot of founders now who are just building things by themselves because of AI, but they all come to a certain level and they hit this first block, let's say stumbling block about fundraising. And some people are afraid of fundraising. I'm not personally, because I love doing that, but fundraising is about what's the best strategies that you have heard or seen across, or techniques that you think would be helpful for founders.
I have never had to do that because my stuff is very low level and I can finance it with a credit card. But for a fundraise, I think that I'm not super comfortable with that. I feel like asking for money is tough for a lot of folks. And even if you're asking for money for something, I like you on Shark Tank, right? I want $1 million for 20% of my company. Okay, you're saying that your cap rate is $5 million, and you're asking for money, but you're giving them something too. So it's not like you're asking for donations. I think becoming comfortable with that is probably a big stumbling block to a lot of people, especially because entrepreneurs tend to be independent, and they want to do this thing themselves. So asking other people for help can be difficult, and sometimes that help is fiscal. So I think that when you get to a point where you're asking for money, you have to, like you said, become comfortable with doing so. But also remember that you're giving them a piece of your company or some service or something else, and they wouldn't pay you or give you the money if they didn't believe in it either. So it's not as if you're going hat in hand saying, please, sir, can I have some more? It's hey, I've got a deal that I'd like to make with you, and let's go. For smaller folks, they can sometimes get bullied by a lot of cash, and if you're a big investor, you can, like we were talking about earlier, you want to get your money out, you're pushing the founder to do things that maybe the founder doesn't want to do. You've got to, like we talked about earlier, assiduously maintain your boundaries in your calendar, but also your priorities for your business, because it still is yours if you've got 51% of that. So don't let them bully you. You know what's best for your business. I years ago hired a consultant and some other folks to look at Jamek's books and look at our business processes, and they made a few recommendations. And the business was going pretty well at the time, and I enacted some of the recommendations, and it ended up being expensive, and there wasn't a lot of return on investment. When I was in India, I stupidly paid a company 10% of my gross for a website landing page. I thought that I was going to only do a few $1,000s in sales, so I figured the 10% is great. And I also asked them if they would. I gave them an 18% commission rate on any unit that they sold to corporations because I was trying to ramp up my B2B sales. Well, long story short, they did 0 corporate sales, and I did $120,000 in regular sales. So I had to pay these folks $12,000 for a website landing page that wasn't that good, and I ended up paying another person $5,000 the next year to redo the whole website and get it done. So I did not know what I did not know. I've spent so much money not knowing what I don't know. And you can get bullied by investors. You can get bullied by I think bullied might be the wrong word for it, but you come in and you spend money on stuff that you just don't need because you don't know a lot of these things. And I was younger and stupider back then, and now hopefully I'm wiser. But
Great stuff. Interesting. Well, this is what it is. At the end, it's about how. What's your journey and how smart you can be for yourself. Josh, you've got a question?
Yeah, I think just listening to yourself, and you're saying earlier before how you almost had to outsource everything that you was doing, even when you were marketing. And I guess as startup founders, you're required to go out there and network with people a lot of the times, even within normal work as well, not in your startups. So my question to you is, do you have any tips or strategies that you follow? Anything that's helped you gain success?
So building this from the ground up, it's a lot of trial and error. And like we have talked about, you're also working a full-time job. You've got a family life. You work out. You've got all these things. So the trial and error has to be quick. You have got to learn these lessons fast, and it can also be expensive, as we also spoke about earlier. So you want to minimize your exposure. So if you're not a quick study and you don't have a lot of money up front, you need to quickly get there. I think the best way to do that is write stuff down, catalog what works, what doesn't. Don't make make mistakes, but don't make the same mistakes, right? We have a thing in our house. I have a 10-year-old, and I'm wrong often. And I will make sure that I tell Alessandro, my son, when I am wrong, and be like, "Hey, buddy, Daddy's wrong here. I am letting you know, not because pardon me. I'm letting you know because I want you to understand one of the peak ways of being a mature adult is to admit that you're wrong, fix it, don't do it again, and apologize for it." Right. Mm-hmm. So these are lessons you can learn in business. You can teach your children. And when you do that sort of stuff, you inculcate this culture of not being afraid to fail because you're going to come back from it, right? Like with the Jamix stuff at the very beginning, when I didn't want to do a production run in the color black, and my wife Nadia was like, "Let's do a pre-sale." Yeah. If I had ego attached to this, I would have been like, "No, we're done. I'm not doing it." She was right. I was wrong. She had a great idea, and we moved forward, and she saved the business. So, not being afraid to fail, but also learning your lessons and not making those same mistakes. Because I have made so many mistakes, but I haven't made the same one twice, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's where you've got to come ahead and do that the right way. The money is hard, and if you don't have a lot of startup capital, expensive mistakes can sink you early. So, it's imperative it's just like in Vegas, right? Don't put on the table what you cannot afford to lose. So scale slowly. And if you've ever played the game Risk, it's a board game where you try to take over the world. But the whole point of it is you cannot take over too much at once because the other guy will just come back and retake all that territory because you don't have enough armies to defend it. It's the same thing in business. If you scale too quickly and you don't have enough to back it up, you can lose it very, very quickly. So there's,
Yeah, Yeah, great
James, a
insight. Thank you.
question in terms of because you're a diplomat as well, you met various people all around the world, potentially very senior leadership. Give us some tips on networking, how that works, and what's been working for you. Quick one-on-ones, because in business it's very important to constantly do that, because sometimes what you don't have is potentially what's with the other person on the across the room that you haven't said hello to. And then
Sure.
you can quickly move on. And then sometimes if you build good relationships with people, it actually helps you and supports you as well with everything that you need for your business.
So I don't have friends. Like I think the networking thing to me, it is required, but it feels dirty because it's like, oh, what do you do? Because what can you do for me? Like that, it very much feels like that when you're in a cocktail party situation or something like that. And I get it, we have business to discuss, but man, wouldn't it be nice if there was a human connection to be made? When you do these types of things. I'm not good on the cocktail party circuit. It feels superficial, but there are ways that you can make these genuine connections. Down in Trinidad, I worked Trinidad and Tobago. I worked often with their government at their cabinet level, inclusive, and like the Trini culture, super warm. Everybody's pretty chill. And you come in and it's not like in the United States, you immediately get down to business at your meeting. You ask about people's day. How are their families doing? How are your kids? Because especially if you're going to be there for a few years, you're going to be meeting with these folks every couple of months or more. So you build a relationship with them. We had our ambassador down there, Candace Bond. She is a Harvard MBA. She is a Harvard grad. And so she was really smart. She had that piece. She also had the people piece going. She remembered, people's names. Remembered that they had kids or that they were doing X, Y, and Z. And most importantly, when she talked to you, she focused on you. And she really cared about the responses you were giving. It was not a superficial thing at all. And for somebody in that position, that is very difficult to do because she probably met 30,000 people in her tour down in Trinidad and Tobago. And as the U.S. ambassador, everybody's laser focused on you already. So there is something to be said for that personal touch, and she got results doing it. She was very good at it. For me, from a work angle, I don't know, I would prefer to hang out with somebody outside of work, and build a relationship outside of business if possible. I think that so the bankers in New York, right? They all go out after work and they go party and they do that stuff. And some people see that as a fairly destructive behavior. It seems to work for them, and they build their relationships, and that's how they get their jobs. That's how they get their promotions and things like that. Last year, I was serving at our UN mission in Manhattan, and I hosted a UN happy hour for about 60 diplomats down in Turtle Bay, which is where the United Nations building is. And it was open bar. And then these dudes showed up, and they were in vests, and I was like, "Oh, it's finance folks." And so I went up and talked to them because this is my happy hour, and they were drinking my beer, and I'm like, "Hey, gentlemen, how's it going?" And they kind of were like, "Who are you?" Because I obviously wasn't dressed the way they were, and I obviously wasn't part of their club. And I'm like, "Hi, I'm James. I'm the one hosting this. It's nice to meet you." And everybody's attitude changed immediately. And I wasn't rude to them, but I let them know that you're on. We have this room. You're welcome to hang out here. But let's acknowledge what's happening right now, okay, gentlemen. So, anyways, it was really cool. The happy hour itself went very well. Our colleagues at the United Nations, obviously that is a huge swath of folks from all over the world. And I had a fantastic time getting to know all of those people. Like it was another master's degree, in international relations right there.
Awesome. So to take feedback from you on that would be keep in mind when you speak to people about the little things. And when you meet them again, that little things that they had told you would potentially help you build that relationship with them. So they would say, okay, you're genuine. You actually listen to me when I speak. Because a lot of times everyone says a lot of things, but people don't grasp that. And if
I
you
will,
remember
I
the little
will,
things,
I will step away from a conversation and real quick write down that person's name on my phone and a couple of things. And then the next time I see them, instead of being like, "Oh no, what's that guy's name?" Oh, hey Joe, what's going on? Nice. How's your wife doing? Okay, cool. And it's a little cheat code, but like it means a lot. And it,
oh, great. James, next question is an interesting one because I think there was, like I always tell everybody, there was a world before COVID, there's a world after COVID. So this is pretty much, I think it could be a bit political, but it's also a bit strategic and also on a risk side as well. So we're based in Europe now. You've got a different American administration now who's got a different strategy towards the world order, and they're doing their own world order as they want. And you've got obviously China on the other side that obviously had an aggressive foreign policy for a very long time, but that's going on the higher end as time is passing. And then we've got emerging Asian economies. You've got Africa that's again getting destabilized step by step, which is not what we wanted. And then you've got poverty also, like wealth gap is increasing around the world. You would see loads of these countries potentially having people, mass migrations happening, people not able to make ends meet. So in this new world, from because of your work and your experience, can you highlight a bit about what's the new world politics and global challenges that's coming up for next year? Just a brief, and I don't want you to go deeper in what you're not allowed to say, but just basics on what people should be aware of, and especially business owners.
well, there's a lot of conflict, whether it's with trade or with actual combat in so many areas. There's a lot of destabilized areas. There are a lot of potentials for a black swan event where, for instance, if you manufacture something overseas and the world order that we are in now, the possibility that maybe something gets invaded or there is a new regulation or tax placed upon that particular area, those are high. So chaos, chaos is not ever good for business, except for a very few select people who are very good at profiting from that type of chaos. Stability, is best for that. I think that when you lower regulatory burdens on folks, to the extent that you're able, because let's be frank, I think that having a good environmental policy, having a good tax policy, having good safety and security policies for whatever business that you're running, those are necessary evils. I know that there are some folks that are very much for unrestricted entrepreneurship and everything else, but I think we need some guardrails. This is just me speaking personally, because if you're a manufacturer of a dangerous item or something like that, there is a place for the government to step in and say, hey, we're going to regulate you in X, Y, and Z ways. And I think that's just how a society is supposed to function. For how we are right now with everything going on in the world, the possibility of chaos is high. We are already in certain portions of chaos. I think that when you have the possibility of, like, for instance, having a major country be sanctioned by a lot of other countries, you've effectively removed them from the market for a lot of things, and that's going to affect people's bottom line. There's going to be a lot of pressure, both for more sanctions or for lifting those sanctions by moneyed interests, and that's just something that happens. For economic instability, for economic inequality, and things like that. In my opinion, I think that entrepreneurship is a great way for people to make their own money. Being your own boss is a wonderful thing. With Damic, we had some people that were rude to me on social media in some way, and they were actually got like pretty gross about it. And I wrote back to them and I was like, hey, one of the perks of being the boss is I can tell you that I'm never going to do business with you ever again. And that was it, right? I didn't have to worry about what my boss was going to say. So when you're able to do that, whether it's, starting handcrafted whatever, or Jamix sales, or, State Department office goods or something like that, all of those things, especially if you are able to keep your day job and keep the lights on and a roof over your head, those are very helpful to have. Entrepreneurship as a hedge against chaos is something to think about as well. So, if you lose your job, well, you have your entrepreneurial role right now, and you can maybe juice that up a little bit and start making ends meet that way. So there's, in my opinion, there's a lot to be said for that.
Okay, great. So duly noted. Josh, you have a question?
Yeah, definitely. This is more of a question to do with yourself, and I guess as entrepreneurs, as startup founders, we can be so fixated and focused on trying to do the work, and we almost forget about our own health. And sometimes it can be eating taken out. We can, be working late nights, and we kind of forget to look after ourselves. And so my question to you is, how important is fitness, especially as a business owner?
So, since 2010, I've run 1,000 miles a year. Like that's been the baseline. Last year, my family left Trinidad and Tobago a year before I did. So I was there for a year by myself. When I dropped them off back in New York, I got on the scale when I got back to Trinidad, and I was 174 pounds, which for me, that was 10 pounds heavier than I'd ever been. And I was like, okay, we need to fix this. But when you get to be my age, you can't outrun weight. You have to deal with it with your diet. So my breakfast is a smoothie. It is a protein smoothie. I put 60 grams or 75 grams of protein, strawberries, blueberries, pineapple juice base, some kefir for probiotics, and chia seeds, granola, all that stuff. And I make about 2 liters worth of smoothie, and that's my breakfast and lunch basically. Dinner is a regular dinner, but I end up losing about 20 pounds. So 1 stone, maybe a stone is what, 14 pounds? I'm trying to translate to the UK. But anyway, so I ended up losing about 20 pounds over the year, and I was really hitting speed workouts because I wanted to get my mile time back to where it was in high school, which was like 5:07, and I was trying to get it down. I was not able to get to. I was able to get into the fives, but not down to 5:07. So the fitness aspect is 100%. You have to do it. And as an entrepreneur, so especially when I'm stationed abroad, and like I write about in my book, Discipline by Subtraction, when I was working out, I was taking my phone calls. That was when I called people. So I'd be running and I'd be on the phone for an hour with somebody back home. Or I'd be listening to a podcast. I very rarely listen to music anymore when I work out. It's always something like this, so I can learn more and exercise my brain while I'm exercising my body. The sleep angle, that's huge, right? I am a chronic go to bed late guy and wake up early, and that is not the right way. You've got to get your sleep under control. If you go out drinking, you're going to have a bad sleep, and your Garmin is going to tell you just how bad the sleep was, or your fitness tracker. It's going to be like, your HRV was 12 last night. What are you doing? And then you're going to feel bad. So there is a time for going out and having fun with your friends and all that, but man, especially again when you get to be my age, you've got to get your sleep under control, your diet, and then your workout. I find I have a lot of energy. I have a very active 10-year-old boy who does football, American football, basketball, scouts, like all sorts of stuff. So we are constantly on the go. And he's like, "Hey, Daddy, do you want to throw the ball around?" I'm like, yeah, let's go. Let's throw the ball around and let's go do this. We're on our way to go buy cross-country skis later today after this, because my wife, who is from Puerto Rico, and is a transplant to New York State, now absolutely loves the wintertime and loves going cross-country skiing. She loves the Buffalo Bills, and it's a very regional thing. I don't expect you to know who they are or care much about them, but my family is very big into football, American football. I don't care, but they are. So.
Sweet. Interesting. So I think fitness is absolutely important because I think the your pace of fitness and how fit you are is also the energy that you need to run your business as well. So if you go down with energy, and the old saying, which is health is wealth, always stays at the forefront of running a business.
Well, that's more important than money. It has to be because you like it just is, right? Like Isaac, I remember you hanging out with the Marines. You were always working out with them in Mumbai, and that's just it's a good habit to keep. Like the military forces you into doing a physical training regimen. I remember when I went to basic training for the Army, I just turned 18. So I enlisted when I was 17, and I was a cross-country runner in high school and a track and field guy also. When I got to basic training, we were only running like 10 miles a week. But for cross country, I was doing 45 miles a week, like right at like very, very fast pace. And I got to the Army and I was actually in worse shape when I left than when I entered because like, it's kind of that lowest common denominator of fitness that they want to get you to. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. Like,
James, talk a bit about running. So it's a lot of people like running. Some people get bored with running. It's not everybody's sport, but it's actually a great sport for building great cardiovascular system, great endurance. And also, I support a lot more outdoor running because it helps you be exposed with the weather and the environment. That also helps you build resilience slowly. And there's also another part of running, which is you're prone to injury, especially if your body mass index is a bit on the higher side. Your knees don't have the strength. And then some guys don't like running because they say you build spaghetti legs. So obviously you have to train your legs and you have to run at the same time. So give us an input on what got you into running and how you managed to do it, because 1,000 miles a year is you must be running at least 80 to 100 miles a month easy.
Yeah, it's like I said, when I was in high school, I ran cross country, track and field, and then I took like the next 10 years off. I didn't do any of that. I came back for a wedding back home to New York. I was living in DC at the time in 2010, and one of my very good friends was getting married, and I saw all of my other buddies who were all on the cross country team or on the track team with me, and they all looked great. And I was like, "You guys, what's going on? You're all like in shape, blah 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 blah." Like, "Oh yeah, we still run." So when I got back to Washington, I'm like, okay, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to start back up. I'll do 10 miles a week, and then I'll raise it, a mile every week until I got to about 20. And I figured that was a good level. And it was tough because DC in the summer is, it's hot. It's like 35 C something, or maybe a little, about 90 degrees. My wife, Nadia, she was my girlfriend at the time. She looked at me like I was crazy. She's like, "What are you doing? This is stupid. What are you training for?" I'm like, "I'm training for life." Like that's what I'm training for. And then she eventually got into it too. So she went out and started walking, and then she started jogging, and then she started going out and actually hitting the pavement running. And she got into it as well. The only time I ever did treadmill stuff was in Mumbai. And that was right after we had our son. I wanted to be close just in case anything happened. But also the air quality in Mumbai was terrible. I did run outside for about 6 months, and I developed a cough and everything else. It was not good. So that was the only time. But in Latvia, I'd be going out at, either running to and from work or going out after Alessandro went to bed at like 9 o'clock at night in February in Latvia. Like, the wind and the snow and everything else, right? Like here, it's similar. We're at the 43rd parallel here, and it gets pretty cold in the wintertime. I have an 8-mile loop that I do here, and it's something you have to do. So is it boring? Do I get spaghetti legs? No, but I'm also short. I'm only 5'7", and I don't get injured. I'm very lucky in that way. I've never really been injured, but I also don't overdo it. Like, I ran a race like 3 weeks ago, and it was a 9K, and I went out with the leader group as one does, and I noticed they were going kind of slow for me, so I was like, okay, I'll take off at the first kilometer, and I ended up winning the race at 46 years of age. And because I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know who the fastest one was, and I figured I was just gonna go. So I got very lucky in that sense. And as far as boring, like, I don't know, anything can be boring or exciting. It's what you make of it, right? If you're listening to podcasts or music, whenever Nadia and I go to a different place, we usually start a running club. In India, we had a very, very ad hoc, like proto running club. It was, we met a couple of times, but we didn't really get it going. In Latvia, we would get like 15 people to our house on a Sunday morning. We'd host breakfast afterwards, and I would pay one of the kids, the older kids, to watch all the little kids while we would go work out. Childcare is very important for that. Here we have the Honeoye Falls Running Club that my wife and I start. We meet at a brewery down the road, OK Beer. It's awesome. And it's the most casual running club ever, right? We run a 5K, come back, we have drinks and eat dinner with our friends. Like it's super cool. So it's just casual, right? They don't charge anybody anything. There's no membership, nothing. It's just a Facebook group and you meet. So we make it very easy, a very low lift.
Great. So I think the tip was try to build community around fitness, try to build friendship around fitness. That will help you get your game up and also keep you motivated as well to do more. Interesting insight out there. So one thing I took from that is like every position you have, whoever you are, is a position that's almost rented to you, and you have to work harder every day to deliver that position that you deserve to be there. So it's very, very, not just as a parent, as a partner, or as a founder, or as a business owner, it's the same. You have to be there for your employees, and you have to deliver that you are the boss. You deserve that position. Interesting intake. As we're gonna get to the end of it, so we can do a bit of closing words. Josh, if you want to start, and then James, and then we can just say a few closing words. And it was a great session, loads of learning. So yeah, please.
Yeah, it was great, James. Thanks for your time today. Honestly, I've learned so much, and it's good how you've broken down, because you have thoughts and ideas of how you should be doing things, and it's great to have good insight from yourself, who's been very successful in business. And there's a lot of aspects that I've taken away today. So thank you very much for your time.
No, Josh, Isaac, thank you, gentlemen, very much. If there is a takeaway here, it is that we delete the dumb stuff. Things that don't give you any return in your investment, cut that immediately. Automate what you can and offload that mental load, offload that labor to something else. I personally am a big fan of being as efficient as possible. I love efficiencies, and I will find them anywhere I possibly can. Be present for your relationships, and be a good person to take care of your folks.
Awesome. Thanks, James. I think it's worthwhile learning, because there's so many things that we didn't know that you just explained, especially things we took very seriously. I think one of the key takeaways was General McRaven's speech about make your bed. I took that seriously, but now I'm thinking from the other perspective, where you don't need to do that. You could potentially save that time and then do something else, and then that's more productive. Yes. Very key takeaways. So absolutely amazed. And then we look forward to welcoming you as well sometimes when we host our retreats. So please do come down as a keynote speaker, and that'll be great to have you on board as well. So what I'll do now,